You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
With the Chicago Bears season at the halfway point, we've been doing a lot of reviewing of the first half of the season and looking back, and so now it's time to really dive deep and hand out mid-season awards, because it's been kind of a weird first half of the season, and it feels like a lot of those spots could change in the second half of the season, depending on how things shake out. This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lorin Cox. I'm an analyst for Pro Football Focus, and I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook. Join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk. And make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. So we're the only ones bringing you this level of Bears talk every single day on demand in your podcast or YouTube subscription feed. And on the show today, it is mid-season award time. So we'll go through most valuable player, offensive player of the year, and of the year is really of the first half of the year, but defensive player of the year so far, rookie of the year so far, comeback player, most improved, and we'll pick a coach of the year as well, even though it hasn't always felt like the Bears coaching staff has done a lot to deserve recognition, but we certainly go deeper than just Matt Nagy and the top of the coaching staff. Absolutely. And I think it's kind of a good look back at where the season has gone, but also it really leaves the door open for a lot of this with the potential to change, because some of these guys are kind of borderline choices. And I think depending on what they do for the remaining 8 games, there's a real opportunity for some of these spots to really shift potentially fairly dramatically. But like we start with MVP, most valuable player. And I always try, and at least when I do them on the podcast, right? In the NFL, like the actual MVP award tends to just kind of be best player, like who's the very best player. But I like to try and specify it a little bit more in terms of like actually value. Who is most valuable? Who provide, and not even just in terms of like financially valuable, like salary cap value, but like who is most important is kind of what I feel like. Who is most integral to the team's success, to where when they're on the field, they make a big difference. And when they are not on the field, it is a noticeable difference, right? Who is the most valuable? Who means the most to this Bears team? And over the first half of the season, there's been some kind of ups and downs. It's typically a quarterback award, and certainly Fields has been very valuable, but there's been plenty of mistakes there. And certainly we only saw a couple of games of Andy Dalton, so he wouldn't be in this conversation. But Fields hasn't been lights out every second of every play. There's been understandable rookie growing pains in there. So I can't really go to the quarterback then. So then you start to look around the roster, and for me, your Bears MVP for the first half of the season is Khalil Mack, because it's been so noticeable not having him in the lineup these last couple of games. That yes, Robert Quinn technically has more sacks than him, and we'll get to some more of that differentiation a little bit later. But Mack is so valuable to this defense, to the attention he requires from the offense, the offensive line, the blockers, the game plan for the offense, having to pay attention to where he is, but then just how well-rounded it is too, right? He's disruptive as a pass rusher, but then extremely physical and hard to stop in the running game, and collapsing those edges and forcing running backs to cut back, even when he's not making the big plays for loss. I don't have to sit here and convince you that Khalil Mack is good. If you're a Bears fan, you already know just how good Khalil Mack is. And part of it's just that there's not another like super great option on this defense. I don't think Roquan Smith has played out of his world like that well enough to command an MVP over Khalil Mack. And then, Eddie Jackson's been struggling, and Jalen Johnson at cornerback isn't, he's been playing well, but is that a most valuable? Could they get by without him better than they could get by with Khalil Mack? I tend to lean that way. So I've got Khalil Mack as my most valuable player. But when I think about like defensive player of the year and offensive player of the year, to me, that's more like best player, or who has been the best player on that side of the ball. And so where I differentiate it, right, I think Robert Quinn is my defensive player of the year so far for the Chicago Bears in how disruptive his pass rushing has been. The sacks and the forced fumbles, the strip sacks in there. He's been the big play guy, and he does have more sacks than Khalil Mack. He has played more games than Khalil Mack now, too. So that's part of why he was able to get ahead of his teammate there. But I don't think he's as valuable as Mack. He's playing better against the run, but I don't think he's as consistent against the run. He's had some flashier plays in the running game, and it's been great. This is not a criticism of Robert Quinn's run defense at all, but I just think Mack is a little bit better in that area too, and just overall a better all-around pass rusher. But the flashes have been phenomenal from Quinn. Consistency at a much higher level this season than we've seen in years past. And so he is more so my defensive player of the year, but he's doesn't quite give me the same value feeling as Khalil Mack because he just hasn't been as commanding of the opposing offense's attention. He doesn't get nearly as many, double and triple team type pass rushing situations. It tends to just be, he tends to benefit more from Khalil Mack and the rest of the defensive line. And that's why he's still my defensive player of the year so far, because he's done a really good job at what he's being asked to do, but it's not quite the same value measurement in quite that same way. And it's the same conversation. Like Roquan Smith's been all right, but he's had some down moments too that don't get enough attention. He really has struggled in some very real moments this season. So he's not playing at a Bears defensive player of the year level. He's not really playing at quite a Pro Bowl level for me at this stage either. Jalen Johnson is definitely in this conversation. He's playing very well, and I think it's a key step forward from this year. And I think if Robert Quinn hadn't had such a clear and obvious bounce back and such a large impact, I probably would have gone Jalen Johnson as my number 2 option here for defensive player of the year, but it's just a little bit more about what Quinn has been able to do thus far. So I think it's a little bit more cut and dry on defense than it is on offense, where you've had changes at quarterback and running back and parts of the offensive line and different weapons getting involved. It's kind of a tough spot to parse out here, but we'll do our best to hand out offensive player of the year and then move on to rookies, coaches, most improved, and so much more coming up next on Locked On Bears. Does this sound familiar to you? You've got one device that lets you catch your game live. You got another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Imagine that's a little bit more applicable, especially here in the bye week when you don't have a Bears game on. You're just surfing around trying to find something. You've got all these different platforms to be watching shows on. But I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle. And it's a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings all your favorite live TV and on-demand shows together like never before, so you can watch all your favorite sports, favorite movies, and favorite TV shows all in one place. That means no more juggling between remotes, and no need to ever buy like another physical device ever again. And the best part is, there's no annual contract. So get rid of all that television clutter and all that confusion, and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. The Chicago Bears offense this season has varied by package. The Andy Dalton offense with David Montgomery, and then Fields come in with David Montgomery, and then Montgomery goes out, and it's sort of Fields Herbert. And now just this last game, the tight ends are all of a sudden part of this offense. Cole Kmet has his best game of the season. And I think offensive player of the year is where I went the back and forth the most and trying to figure out who to give this to, because like last game, Fields looked like offensive player of the year, but against the Browns, he didn't. And, against the Packers, not so much. We saw flashes of it against the Lions and the Raiders that looked good, but has he been good enough so far to be offensive player of the year? Probably not. Maybe by year's end, the second half of the season, I think he's got a real chance to kind of run away with that type of award for the Bears. But I got to go with Darnell Mooney at this point, because it's about consistency. He's been there through and through and has been kind of the solid one they've been able to rely on, I think, more so than anybody else from week in to week out. Like, he's not like every game has been 100 yards. It was a slow one against the Browns, as was the rest of the offense. And, week 1 was kind of a little light. And as I looked through his game schedule, the Raiders game was a little bit light, but, puts up 64 against the 49ers, of course, 125 against the Lions, 66 against the Bengals. It just seems like he's been able to kind of be a steady part of this offense more so than anyone else. Like, I wanted to give it to Khalil Herbert because he was such a high quality player. And I think in the games that he started, he was the Bears' best offensive player, but that was only a handful of games in between David Montgomery taking his job back last week and then Montgomery starting the season. I think Herbert goes down with 2 starts, but really I think there was the game that Montgomery got hurt in was really almost like a third start for Herbert. But 3 out of the 9 games is not necessarily enough. Or I guess there were four total games where he was the main back, but 4 out of 9 is less than half. And Montgomery was so good in those other games. Like I don't want to give it to Montgomery because he missed half of the season, but Herbert only played half of the season. So like them combined have been the Bears' offensive players, or their best offensive players. But Mooney's the one that's been there week in and week out. So I guess by the technicality of the made up rules of the award that I'm making up, I got to go with Darnell Mooney. He's been the wide receiver Fields has been able to connect with the most, that Dalton was able to get some things going with in the absence of Allen Robinson's production, in the absence of tight end production, and not really getting a ton from Goodwin or Bird or some of the other guys. So only purely because of the running back split, Darnell Mooney ends up being more so that guy for me as offensive player of the year. But then if I'm going rookie of the year, and I should say, the NFL splits up offensive and defensive rookie of the year. The Bears have one defensive rookie, Kairos Tonga. I'm not going to do a defensive rookie and year award just for the sort of the one guy who wins it by default. I guess we can award it to him if you want to. Congratulations, Kairos Tonga. By process of elimination, you are the only defensive rookie of the year to play on the field this season. So congrats. But really, like overall rookie of the year, it's got to be Khalil Herbert. I mean, as much as Justin Fields has been exciting and encouraging and growing and getting better and showing us more and more of what a bright future looks like at quarterback in Chicago, Khalil Herbert has been just a huge, not only a big surprise, but then phenomenal in its own right. I mean, take away that he's a 6th-round rookie and just say that was those 4 games were David Montgomery, and we would be raving about how well David Montgomery ran in those 4 games. And we do rave when David Montgomery does it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying like it's extra impressive then that you add on that he is a rookie and a 6th-round rookie at that, a 6th-round rookie that wasn't really wanted by his original college and had to grad transfer to Virginia Tech to get some playing time and even get drafted, and to come into the NFL and be one of the leading rushers among rookies after not really playing in the first 4 games of the season. I mean, he's among the top 10, I think, in missed tackles forced by running backs. He's creating yards by himself and carried this Bears offense when Justin Fields was struggling, and was such a reliable factor for them to be able to kind of lean on and stay in some games and control some clock in some different ways and help this offense out in more ways than we would have possibly thought when David Montgomery gets hurt, Tariq Cohen's been out, and Damian Williams gets COVID and just has been fine, but not spectacular. He's been a shining star and definitely the Bears rookie of the year through the first half of this season. How about comeback player of the year? A guy who, maybe didn't play a lot last year, or maybe was injured, or, for whatever reason, like right away you would think like Eddie Goldman didn't play last season, comes back, and he's been fine, but I don't think he's been great. He's been clearly needed to get back into sort of the football swing of things, and just has been, I don't know, steady Eddie, but not dominant, big time top nose tackle Eddie. And so my comeback player of the year for the Bears is Jason Peters. And it's a some less conventional type of comeback. I mean, he was semi-retired fishing when the Bears called him and brought him in not that he was like not expecting to ever get a call this season, but like there was certainly a comeback effort involved in bringing him in. And there were some real rough patches along the way, some struggles certainly against some really quality edge rushers. But the last few weeks especially, he seems to have settled into that role a little bit more. And we kind of know what he is and what he isn't, right? I mean, he's not going to be this Pro Bowl caliber player anymore at this late stage of his career, but he has been steady now and giving Justin Fields at least something he knows what he's getting, right? He's not going to win every block. He's still going to get beat sometimes, but you kind of get a better sense of like what you've got there and when you can escape and when you can stay in the pocket and where Peters is based on the type of pass rusher he's playing. So he's kind of been that comeback player of the year for me. I mean, the other guy that I think qualified would be like Alec Ogletree, the linebacker, but I don't think he's playing nearly well enough to be, comeback player of the year. And I just don't think Goldman has played that well. He's been fine, which is not as consistent, I think, thus far as what Jason Peters has become, given some time to kind of warm up into it. In the same way that like any of these comeback players are coming back. So like they're all going to need a couple of weeks to kind of get to ramp back up into like regular season football consistency. But I think Peters has shown the most improvement of the players who have come back from week 1 until now. And so that's where I tend to sort of lean that direction for him. Similar type of award, I think most improved player is a fun one for me because there has been some struggles from a lot of different guys and guys that we were looking to potentially try and have improve this season, and not a lot of them have. And there were some younger players that, players have gotten better, but not like drastically better from either compared to week 1 or compared to where they were in years past. But I think I think it's got to be somewhere in the secondary with a lot of young guys moving around there. I look around the roster and it's not so much going on everywhere else, but I don't know. This was a tough one too, because it's improvement can be kind of scaled in different ways, but we'll work through some of the premier candidates in particular and name a most improved player before we'll wrap up with a coach of the year and also a play of the year so far. Next on Locked On Bears. Today's episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by the world's best tasting protein bars, Built Bars. It's because they don't taste like protein bars. They taste like candy bars. They're all covered in 100% real chocolate. They are soft. They're easy to chew, but they're all low sugar, low calorie, high fiber, and high protein. For me, they're like a cheat dessert that I can have whenever I want. And I have to kind of limit myself to just eating one a day, because otherwise I'll just blow through the box of them way, way, way too quickly. And I just ordered a new box of coconut brownie chunk, the best Built Bar flavor. I'm so excited to have it in. I still have some cookie dough Built Bars and some salted pretzel Built Bars and a couple of banana cream Built Puffs, but I'm getting low. So I need my coconut brownie chunk Built Bars to come in, because those are phenomenal. I'm telling you, there's so many different flavors. You will find one you fall in love with. Head on over to built.com, enter our promo code LOCKED15, and you're going to get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. With no Chicago Bears football this weekend, there's a lot of kind of flipping between other games, and you don't get as much stakes at it. It's not as exciting when you don't have it's not your team that you're watching. But I was able to kind of turn it up a little bit by laying some money down at BetOnline.ag, the number one place we trust and the number one place we recommend for all of your sports betting action, whether it's football, college football, plus basketball season underway, hockey, soccer, tennis, boxing, MMA, you name it, they have it at betonline.ag. Even like Vegas casino games online, there's tons of different ways to play. And, when you have a little bit of juice on, say, the Cowboys blowing out the Falcons, that one feels a little bit better when a little bit of cash is coming your way when you predict one of those right. It's just, if you watch football, football, you can find little windows here and find some odds that you like. I guarantee you'll find something at BetOnline. Sign up today for a free account and enter our promo code LOCKEDON. And you're going to receive a free 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit, giving you even more money to play with at betonline.ag, where the game starts. Most improved player. We haven't seen, Justin Fields has improved a lot from when he started to now, but I don't feel like it's an award I'm allowed to give to a rookie, because you kind of expect your rookies to get better. And I think of most improved more so as like from what we thought they were at the start of the season to now, or what they were last season to now. It tends to be a younger player, but rookies, we don't really have that. We're still establishing the baseline for them to improve from. So while Justin Fields has maybe shown the most improvement from week 3 until now, I think I'm not quite, I just don't think the spirit of the made up spirit of the made up award quite fits in. So I got to go with DeAndre Houston Carson, the safety who had, he's always been that 4-phase special teams guy, but Deion Bush always played on defense ahead of him when they had an injury at safety, right, in the goal line and stuff. And Houston Carson was always kind of that end of the bench last safety player. But if it first starts getting in the slot rotation after Duke Shelley was kind of struggling and Marquise Christian was struggling, and so Carson starts playing some slot cornerback / third safety, then it molded into this true like dime third safety look. And I guess in previous years, he had gotten that like 6th defensive back dime player role here and there, but it was like 2 or 3 snaps a game. And now he's more like 20 to 25. And then when Tashawn Gibson's hurt, Houston Carson's in there. When Eddie Jackson's hurt, Houston Carson is in there, and he has played very well. I mean, relatively speaking, right? He's not playing like a Pro Bowl safety, if we're going to use that as the benchmark here, but for what our expectations may have been, he's been solid, reliable, a player that, it's not that I want to go into 2022 with my plan to saying, yep, we're handing him the starting job next to Eddie Jackson, and we're good to go with Houston Carson. Not necessarily. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But he's a guy that I feel like I want in that competition now. That, next training camp, let him, draft somebody or bring in another free agent or whoever, and let Houston Carson compete to start. And, if he wins the competition, great, he can be your starter. And if not, he's still a really solid backup and a great special teams player. And you can get him in some of these like rotational 3 safety type looks. So great improvement from DeAndre Houston Carson, kind of takes the cake for me. I mean, we've seen some improvement from like Kendall Vildor. Even Duke Shelley has gotten better, I think, as the season goes on. Robert Quinn would qualify for this because he was so bad last season and is really good this year, but we knew he was capable of this. We weren't quite as sure that Houston Carson was capable of this. And that's what I kind of like about most improved, is being a little bit more of a surprise in that regard. And plus, we already gave Robert Quinn Defensive Player of the Year. So I don't like to double up on the awards unless it's just painfully obvious has to be the same player or same person winning those 2 awards. So that kind of does it for the players side. I do want to give a Coach of the Year. As much as we're ready to fire Matt Nagy, he can't be your Coach of the Year. Bill Lazor taking over the play calling has done a better job, but he has been the offensive coordinator throughout when the offense has not been phenomenal at times also. So, I mean, he's been a pleasant surprise as things have kind of turned around there too. Sean Desai, the defense has kind of fallen apart the last couple of weeks, so I don't want to give him Coach of the Year. So I'm going to go with a name that I don't know that a lot of you will immediately recognize right away and know who this is. Michael Pitre. Does it ring a bell? It's one that when I heard Matt Nagy say his name at a press conference a couple weeks ago, I had to pause for a second. I go, Michael Pitre, or he said Coach Pitre, and I was like, Coach Pitre. Oh yeah. He's the running backs coach. What position on this Bears team has been better coached this season than the running backs? I mean, David Montgomery, Damian Williams, and then to get Khalil Herbert ready. And you give the scouting staff talent 100% for, drafting David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, right? And so it's always hard to know how much is talent versus how much is coaching, but the running backs have been so good and so consistent. And so I got to give it to Michael Pitre. It's just a step ahead of wherever Bill Lazor might be in this sort of competition, because it's the one position group that has been the most reliable across the board. I mean, the outside linebackers have been consistent too, but I mean, you're going to credit the outside linebackers coach for Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, 2 of your highest paid, most invested players. I mean, not to take anything away from Bill Shuey, I'm sure Travis Gibson has played better there, and they've gotten some other guys involved there. But when you have 2 guys who have been Pro Bowl players before already on the roster, it's a little different than when it's your 6th-round rookie Khalil Herbert and then Montgomery and Damian Williams, despite not having Tariq Cohen in the backfield this season. So I got to go Coach of the Year, running backs coach Michael Pitre, and then your Play of the Year. First play of the year so far, might be your play of the season. It's got to be the 4th and 1 Justin Fields broken play, scramble, hero turnaround, make 14 guys miss and run for a touchdown. A play where he's trying to roll to the right, it's blown up, comes off to the left side, then cuts back up the middle, makes 2 guys miss. He just needed a yard for a first down, and he turned it into the touchdown. It was just phenomenal playmaking. It's not even quarterbacking, it's running, but it's more than running because he's the quarterback. And I mean, it's wow. That was a wow play of the year for Justin Fields. I mean, he's made some really impressive special throws, especially rolling to his left, but I don't know, maybe if the Steelers touchdown at the end of the 4th quarter had truly been game winning, maybe that one would have been. And I that was the one where I was closest to flipping to, because it did give them the lead with not very much time left. And that was a really difficult throw and a great drive that was capped off. But the Herculean effort it took on that 4th and 1 touchdown scramble from Fields really, I think, takes the cake for me for player of the year. So that's sort of your traditional NFL midseason awards. We could do some made up superlatives, but sometimes you end up kind of fishing for different awards, and then you can get a little bit more negative and disappointing players and things like that. We're sticking with sort of the traditional and some positives, right? Across the board, those are all good things. I wanted to recognize the players and coaches and plays that have been good and positive through the ups and downs of the start of the season. Curious to know what you think. If you want to let us know if you disagree on any of those awards or think I got one wrong, let us know in the Locked On Bears Facebook group. You can post in there, tweet us at Locked On Bears, or in the comments on this YouTube video. Let us know who your Bears MVP is, your Bears offensive and defensive player of the year, your Bears rookie of the year, most improved player, coach of the year, play of the year. If I got it wrong, please absolutely let me know. Appreciate you tuning in and following along and making Locked On Bears your first listen each and every day. Hope you're subscribed to keep up with all of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. If you're looking for a second listen now that we're wrapping up Locked On Bears, don't forget all of our great national podcasts, Locked On NFL, looking at the league from the NFL-wide perspective, rotating cast of hosts there. Peacock and Williamson breaks down the league with former NFL scout Matt Williamson, plus Locked On Bets has all of your betting advice, and they have been red hot. Like, they've had winning weeks like 12 of the last 14 or something like that. I mean, they are really, really going well over there. So check out all the things going on in the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Bears has your Chicago Bears every day, and every day an opportunity for you to bear down.